So now we're going to do exercise 45-27. The data is on eConestoga. It's called Problem 27 Data. So if you haven't downloaded it, go ahead and do that now. You'll see here we've got 4 existing columns. So we have our date, our open, close, and our return. So what we're looking at here is Bitcoin prices. So what we're looking to do is to analyze the returns, and we're going to do that in 2 separate ways. Number one is we're going to do a summarizing the total return by year. And then we're going to do another pivot table that summarizes daily return by day of the week. So if I look at my data, the first thing that I notice is my date is not formatted as a date. So let's update that. So I'm going to change that from general to be my short date. And that's a little bit easier to handle. Then the next thing that I want to look at is day of the week. So we want to include the day of the week in the pivot table. That doesn't currently exist. So I know that I'm going to have to include that. So I'm just going to put that in as an additional column in my data. So we all know how to identify the day of the week using our weekday function. So let's just throw a name in here. So I'm going to name this column. And then if I start with weekday, I'm going to start by selecting which return type I want. And I'm just going to go with 1, which means that 1 is equal to Sunday, 7 is equal to Saturday. So now I have the day of the week, but that's not what we're looking for. We don't want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We want an actual day, which means I need to be able to look up this number in a lookup table, which I'm going to put in my documentation sheet because that's where it belongs, to actually identify Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So if I go into my documentation sheet, I'm going to put my weekday number and my weekday. So we chose the 1, so that means that our 1 is equal to Sunday. And you can use the autofill. It knows you want to go down to Saturday. And then I'm going to name my data table. I'm going to call that day of week. And you'll see that the number, which is what I'm looking for, is on the left. It's in the first column. And what I'm looking for, the day of the week, is going to be in my second column. So that's the column number that I'm going to use in my VLOOKUP. So I'm just going to take this out for now. And I'm going to start over. So in this case, I want to VLOOKUP on the number. So I know my lookup table starts with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in order to generate that lookup value, I need to do my weekday calculation again. And that's just using the name for the first column. So that's my lookup value. And then I put my comma in. Now my table array is day of the week. The column number, column reference that I'm going to use is the second, because I know that the number is in the first column, the day of the week is in the second column. And then I'm looking at an exact match, which means I'm going to use the false. And you can see now I have the day of the week, my Friday, Saturday, Sunday, etc. So now I can start to create my pivot table. So insert pivot table. I'm going to create that in a new sheet. And I'm going to rename my new sheet as pivots. And the first pivot table that I'm looking for is going to be the return by year. So I'm going to pull in my date, and you'll see that the date doesn't come in the same way as it looks in my Bitcoin prices worksheet. If I right click on this, you know that we're looking to summarize the data by year. So I'm going to select group and then deselect months and quarters and leave it to just year. And that will give me my, is it 8-year period? And then my return is what I want to summarize. So because it's a number, Excel assumes that we want to sum it. The total return in the year 2010 is not 2.66. That's the sum. What I'm looking for is the average. So I'm going to change from sum to average. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, if I click on this, value settings, number format, percent. So then you can see the return by each year. And now insert a row. And the only reason I do that is if I wanted to put a filter in here, I want there to be a field where the filter can go. So I want to make sure I have that extra row on top for my title. So this is going to be my Bitcoin return, average return by year from 2010 to 2018. And I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger. And we want to put a pivot table chart in here. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to my pivot chart under insert. And in this case, I'm going to do a column chart, should be fine. I'm just going to relocate that so it's next to my data. And then I'm going to make a couple of adjustments to make sure that my chart is equal to our best practices for charting. And in order to do that, if you go to design, you'll see you've got your chart element button where you can start to make your changes. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my grid lines. Then my chart title, I'm going to change this so it shows that I'm looking at my average return by year, average Bitcoin return by year from 2010 to 2018. And then I'm going to name my axis. So this is going to be my year. And then my vertical axis is going to be my average return percentage. And then the next thing I want to do is, because the legend is not really necessary because there's only one data series that we're using, I'm actually going to delete my legend in this case. So I go under legend and I select none. And then the last thing that I want to do is I want to see if there's any data that I want to highlight to the users. So one of the things might be, if I just make this a little bit bigger, you can see that our highest return is in 2010, lowest return is in 2018. So that's worth highlighting. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add my shapes. And adjust that so you can see the arrow. I'm going to add my text box above this. So highest return in 2010. And you can change if you want to make color so that it's green, so you can see it's positive. And then I'm going to do the same thing for 2018. And in this case, I'm going to change it to red, and I'm going to put a text box. Lowest return in 2018. And that looks good for that piece. Now, if I look back at my pivot table, see I've got my average return date. Let's change this to year. And now I want to add my second pivot table. So I can copy and paste this down here. And instead of going and looking at by year, I want to look at my average return by day of the week. So the beauty of copying and pasting an existing pivot table is, of course, that all of my formatting from the pivot table above has followed down here. I already have my average return. If I created a new pivot table, I'd have to go in and change from sum to average once again. So a little bit of efficiency there in copying and pasting an existing pivot table rather than creating from scratch. I'm going to copy my title down. And then in this case, I'm going to go Bitcoin average return by day of the week. I'm just going to call this weekday instead of day of the week. And then I'm going to do, again, I'm going to create my pivot table chart. So if I want to go to Insert, Pivot Chart. And in this case, I'm just going to do a bar chart instead and see how that looks. Make that a little bit bigger. And then we're going to do all of our adjustments on this to make this up to best practices. So I'm going to change this to Bitcoin return by day of the week. And then going to get rid of my legend because again, it's not meaningful. And then up to design, I'm going to start modifying my primary horizontal axis. That's going to be my average return percentage. And then my primary vertical is going to be day of the week. And then my grid lines, I want to get rid of those. So you'll see the one that's highlighted is primary major verticals, so I deselect that. And then the other thing that I want to just add, I still want to add in my time period here. So to 2018. And then the only thing I'm going to add here is I'm going to put a circle around Wednesday. To identify that Wednesday does have the highest returns. And then okay, and the last piece is we want to go and add a text box. Want to make sure you spell highest right. And I'm just going to make that a little bit bigger. And that is it for that one.